Hello, David Spicer here with our second ever episode of Stage Whispers Live. And we've got a very exciting episode because today is the 50th anniversary of an organisation called Currency Press. Now, anyone who's ever read an Australian play ever will have noticed the insignia Currency Press. They were actually founded 50 years ago today. And this was the family responsible. We've got, remarkably, the Currency Press is still run by the family. It's a family business, and they have published, they've got 480 plays in publication at the moment. Oh, I've got a few here. And I've got a few playwrights as well to talk about the remarkable legacy of Currency Press. And first I'm going to bring onto the screen Nick Parsons. Hello, Nick.
David, how are you going?
Nick is from Bathurst. No, Lithgow. And Nick, you were there, of course, at the time when when Currency Press was born. And what a literary legacy you've got. I mean, did it start on the kitchen table?
It literally started on the kitchen table. Yes, it was. That was back in '71. So I can't say I've had a very active part in the birth of that company. But yes, I remember my parents and a few of their friends gathering around the table and plotting the launch of this thing. It was a time when there was a lot of new Australian writing happening, and which it was the birth of what we now think of as the Australian New Wave, and they were looking for some kind of way of recording the work that was being done, and they decided to start a publishing company.
And I've now brought onto the screen one of the new waves. Absolutely. David Williamson.
Now very much an old wave.
And you're coming to us from Noosa.
From almost sunny Noosa, in the land of Queensland where we do what we like. Sorry.
And how important was Currency?
Currency Press was huge in my life. I remember Catherine Brisbane saw a little play of mine called "You Got to Get On, Jack," and she decided I was putting real characters on stage and said, "Did I have anything else?" And I went and showed her The Removalists and Don's Party, which at that stage hadn't got any productions, but she liked them, and they did get productions. And suddenly I was in print with The Removalists, which was one of their early volumes. And that went on to curriculums, as did the club. And I still get people coming up to me and saying, I had to study your play in HSC, and they either did badly or well, but it's rather nice.
And what difference did it make? The fact that there was a company?
David's being a little bit modest there. I think the Removalists single-handedly supported the company for about for probably the first 8 years.
Yes, the Removalists sort of went off in terms of school sales. It spoke of an unspeakable Australian male behaviour. It was a very blackly satirical play pointing out the worst aspects of Australian male chauvinism, and it seemed to strike a chord in the schools, and off it went. And it's still selling out there, not as much as it used to in the old days, but I was so glad to be part of that early Currency Press output, and so glad that if, as Nick says, it did help them, well, I'm very glad about that too, because they've gone on to do an amazing job of recording our dramatic history, our drama history. In fact, as I've said often to my Currency editors, I never quite really believe one of my plays has happened until I hold my Currency Press edition. And there it is, and there's the cast, and there's photographs of the production, and it's immensely satisfying.
And of course, you're so prolific that they they actually have to produce them in bundles of 5, because you write a new play every 6 months, or you used to.
No longer. I've given them a break now, but it was very good. The volumes were always introduced, and the design was excellent right from the start, and it was a very professional outfit. So I think your parents did very well, Nick.
Well, I've now joined on the screen by Debra Oswald, another Currency Press published playwright. Now, Debra, you tell us how you came into the Currency Press orbit.
Well, I started going to see the theatre when I was 11 or 12, including The Removalists, which was incredibly important to me. And after that, when I fell in love with the theatre, I used to go to the Parramatta Council Library to borrow plays, and I would borrow those little hard copy volumes. You remember those, Nick and David? And I used to borrow so many Currency plays that I would write begging letters to the librarians of the Parramatta Library to please buy more, and it was this incredible way for me to look at what a play looked like on the page and to believe that it was possible to be a playwright in Australia. And that's an incredibly powerful thing, I think. And then a few years later, to have my own plays published by Currency, I think I've got 9 or more, some anthologies as well. There's nothing to compare. As David said, it feels real, and there's a sense in which this incredibly ephemeral form has a chance to maybe pop up again. You know, that if one of your plays is published, there's a chance that a theatre company in another state will discover it, or a school, and my plays have been on school syllabuses, and the idea that there's kids out there doing productions of my plays brings me so much joy, and none of that would be possible without Currency.
Well, wonderful, Debra. We've lost Nick Parsons. He'll turn somewhere out Lithgow. But we'll keep pressing on. This is Stage Whispers Live. It is live. Things happen live. Now, I've now joined by Emily Sheehan. Now, she's a younger playwright. And Emily, you've recently had the play Daisy Moon was here we go. Here's a picture. Woohoo! Daisy Moon was born this way.
Yeah, Currency published my first play, Hell's Canyon, in 2018, which was such a big deal for me at the time. And piggybacking on what Debra said, because of that, it went on to tour regionally and was on the school syllabus this year. And then the year after it was first published, Claire from Currency got in touch with me, and we published Daisy Moon, that had had a production a few years prior. And because of that, you know, incredible support and them, you know, backing me as publishers, it's meant that it's had, you know, different productions and different artists, and have had, you know, second seasons and third seasons, and that is just like such a big milestone for me in my career, and it's definitely because of that support by Currency.
Nick Parsons, we've rejoined the broadcast. Fantastic. Wow. I've got the satellite link. I sent the truck out to the Blue Mountains. We've got you back.
Right.
So now, Nick, Currency Press, it is a private company. You don't receive any government funding. You run a business, and you correct me if I'm wrong, and you're successful, and you employ 8 people, and you basically make your living on the talent of Australian writers.
Well, that's right, which is why we're so grateful to them all. It's not quite true to say we receive no government funding. We receive elements of project funding, and in fact, we've had Australia Council funding to help us with the Currency Play Festival, Playwrights Festival, that we're currently organising, which has been delayed, sadly, because of COVID, but hopefully we'll be up and running March next year.
Wonderful. Now, I've got a question for you. For the panel, do people read plays for pleasure like they read novels? And should they? David, what's your view?
Well, no, in general, I don't think they're read like novels. There's no reason why they couldn't be, but there's something daunting to many people about reading a play. Perhaps it's all those Shakespearean plays they had to read as students, or perhaps even my plays. I don't know. But they're certainly not consumed like novels. Although in your average modern novel, you'll have a lot of dialogue that the writer has put in any case. So there's no fundamental reason why they can't read plays. But in general, there's less description of atmosphere, of place and things. It's mainly dialogue, which some readers find daunting because they have to visualize the whole thing themselves as if it was on stage.
What about you, Deborah? What do you think?
Well, as a teenager, I used to read a lot of plays, but in my mind as training manuals. The main thing I think is that if people want to be playwrights, they should read plays. I'm often astonished at people who are trying to write plays who've never actually read lots of different plays, because it's fascinating to look at the different ways people put on the page what they want to happen on stage. So that's a fascinating thing. But as David says, it's difficult. It's difficult. I mean, I think a lot of people are bad at reading full stop. People are bad at reading even novels, let alone plays.
What about you, Emily?
I mean, I do read plays for pleasure. And I mean, in the last 2 years, digital theatre has become, so much bigger, and we've had access to so many more productions, but I still buy and read plays as a way to definitely get better at my craft, but also for fun. They're short reads. You might sit on the couch for an hour, and they're really nice way to pass the time. But also on that craft side, I think I need to see theatre to be inspired to write, but also reading plays and seeing that text on the page helps me, because it helps me imagine, well, what is the scaffolding for a theatrical production, and what does this look like on the page? And I can, I might not be able to imagine my whole play on the stage while I'm writing, but it's like seeing dialogue on the page helps you think, okay, that's kind of where I'm going to move into with the dialogue that I'm writing, knowing that it will translate theatrically.
Nick, who buys plays? I mean, do you know? Oh, well, you would. Wouldn't you?
Well, we have some idea. Yeah, 80% of our sales are educational, and 20% go through other outlets. Generally, those when we're not being purchased by schools or universities, our readership tends towards theatre practitioners and other kind of people with an ongoing interest in theatre. We don't describe ourselves as a trade publisher. We're a specialist publisher in the performing arts. That said, I think plays are great to read for pleasure. They don't, as Emily says, they're a quick read. You can read one in a sitting or 2 sittings. And they might not have all the detail that a novel would have, but the plot moves much faster. So you can pack in a lot into a short time.
Yeah, I enjoy reading them. I was just talking about the general readership. I'm not sure whether quite as attuned as that. But the feedback I got from classroom teachers is that my plays really came alive when the class started acting them out, because plays are, in a sense, a blueprint for a future performance. And as soon as the students got those words into their own mouths and started acting out the scenes, that's when the plays came alive in the classroom feedback that I got.
Well, I've got an interesting issue in a second, but I want to give a quick plug to Stage Whispers magazine, which is hosting this broadcast. Now, a few months ago, we purchased Book Nook. It was about to go under during COVID, and we decided, no, we won't let it go. And so we've relaunched it. And so all of your books can be purchased, of course, on the Currency Press portal and Australian Plays Transform, and lots of undigitally, but you can also get it at Stage Whispers. And the advantage is that you get free subscription to the magazine if you buy if you buy books on our website, and we're donating 15% of all book sales to the New South Wales Actors Benevolence Fund, which goes to all around Australia. If you buy a book on Book Nook by the end of the month, end of September, but please visit at any other time as well. So there's my plug. I've got it out of the way. The big news today, of course, is that Moulin Rouge was Musical of the Year at the Tony Awards. What a great effort for Carmen Pavlovic. Amazing achievement. There was that great Australian accent at the Tony Awards. That's tremendous news. And the issue that I want to bounce off everybody is we've got all these playwrights here. Is COVID a great topic for a play? I mean, because you've got everyone trapped in the room and you've got all the ingredients for drama. So who wants to put their hand up first?
You mean hand up to write one?
Yes.
I mean, for me, the pandemic, my whole working life has been trapped in a room wearing track boots. So I'm kind of match fit for a pandemic. But I think there's going to be a lot of very, very bad plays written about it. But I think someone is going to write a brilliant one.
What about you, David? Oh, no, Emily?
I was going to say, it's going to be like the new social media. Like, I feel like for a little while, no one knew like really how to write social media into plays, and it was kind of theatricalized in weird ways, or different characters came on to be the voice of different social platforms or whatever. It's going to be the new thing people wrangle with. Like, how do I include COVID in this without it feeling weird?
Yeah,
what about you?
I think that's true.
What about you, David? Are you tempted to come out of your retirement and write one more play? Everyone's stuck in the lounge room fighting, trying to get to school.
Yeah, well, one partner doing a jigsaw puzzle, the other fixing the sliding door. It would be very exciting.
What about you? Have you been sent some stuff?
I foresee there's going to be a new version of Quick Close.
I was in that play. I was in Quick Play when I was at high school. I was really bad. That's why I took to writing plays, because I was such a bad actor.
Yeah, right.
So Deborah, you've had 9 plays published by Currency Press, and now you've been gobbled up by the film and television industry. Is that the big problem that great playwrights, instead of, it's a bit like sport, and they should be winning gold medals at the Olympics, instead they're sort of playing professional rugby league. I mean, do you miss writing plays for the theatre? Oh, of course you were last year, unless you're in it yourself.
Yes, I did a one-woman show in April this year at the Griffin, which was partly about why I gave up writing plays, about how the theatre broke my heart. But not wishing to be negative, the wonderful thing about Currency is that every few weeks I will get a message from my agent to say a small company in another state is doing one of my plays, or a school is doing a production. And the idea that there's people still there doing my plays, even if I wrote them a few years ago, is such a joy, which is only possible because the plays are published. And so I consider myself, am I a lapsed playwright? I'm not sure. I don't know. Anyway, if your plays are still being done, you're still a playwright, aren't you?
Yep, that's true.
You shouldn't be a lapsed playwright, Deborah. I can remember many years ago sitting in a theatre and seeing this play called Dags, and I turned to Chris and said, gee, the person who wrote that can really write. And a young Debra Oswald turned around from the next row and says, oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Now, Emily, you're earlier on your career. What difference did what difference make to you to sort of be in the same canon as, these other playwrights?
It's been a really big deal, actually, and I never really imagined, like, I thought for me, like, the goal was like getting published and like, oh, I've got this book in my hand and like, yay, and then that's the end. But actually, it's true, other companies do then reach out or say they want to study a little bit for class, or my students doing this monologue for their, drama studies, would you send them an email? Like, just, I feel like it's actually like, it opens more doors that you don't realize exist, and over time that has been more cumulative, which is, as Debra so articulately said earlier, like it kind of like holds a container for something that you think is ephemeral, and theatre does disappear, and there is only this moment in time that people can experience your art, that when you're a writer, actually this publication holds a container for maybe more will happen.
Now, are we getting enough diversity in voices on the Australian stage? Dead white. There are too many dead white males on the stage.
Well, there's a nearly dead white male here, but
I'm just doing the ebook for Dead White Males at this very moment. Actually, it's a really good play.
Thank you. I enjoyed writing that one, puncturing a few satirical. Yeah. Anyway,
I think there's a bit of diversity for people starting out. I think the problem is allowing playwrights to have long careers. I think there's a lot of new voices that are invited in and then dropped in favour of the next batch of new voices. And I think that it would be nice if we had just more Australian plays filling the seasons of companies, so that people can have long careers, and so there can be more revival, so that we can revive Australian plays, not just constant Ibsen.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more, Deborah. Your play should have been on main stage and should still be on main stage all over. But we have this main stage mentality that somehow only a third of the plays can be Australian, the rest have got to be classics, and the other have got to be contemporary overseas. And so I used to be accused. Now, your plays are keeping diversity off our stages. Your plays about middle-class Anglo-Celtic people, we're sick of them, we want diversity. Well, I said, well, you could get diversity if you'd stop doing Noel Coward and the umpteenth production of The Importance of Being Earnest, or the 49 Steps, or whatever old English classics you choose to put on. It's just this formula they have in their heads. There should be far more Australian work on our main stages. And we've got the writers of quality like Deborah to be doing it.
And
I support that too. Sorry,
that's all right. Look, I am a learner steering this ship, but anyway, someone said I'm almost a P-plater. Deborah Franco just, I just published her social media comment. The Currency has published a collection of plays about COVID, The Curve, a Playwrights Time Capsule. So there we go. That issue is already in press, even while COVID is still going. And so what about the future? Do we think that there's going to be a boom for theatre now, that when COVID's finished, people are going to be desperate to sort of go out and see a play or a musical?
I hope so.
Yes. It might be like the Roaring Twenties. We might have a second wave of Roaring Twenties, with everyone being desperate to do things. And I'm certainly desperate to be in a room with other people enjoying live performance and live music. That's what I'm really hanging out for.
That's what theatre can offer. That theatre is one of the last communal things where live people are on stage, live people are in the audience, and you're part of a community for that time. And I think people are hungry for that after being isolated in their rooms. I think they'll flood back to the theatre as a social activity.
David, can I just go back to the diversity question for a second? I did probably 6 months ago, I did a little inventory of the plays that Currency had published over the last couple of years, and just to look at the diversity issue in them, because Currency, we only publish plays which have had or are about to have a production. So in a way, the stuff that we publish is a bit of a survey of what's been produced around the country, and certainly on the evidence of the last few years of Currency publications, you would have to say that diversity is being well and truly satisfied. There's the breakdown between male and female is almost completely even. There's the writers from diverse backgrounds are certainly well represented.
Yes, I think in 2019, the figures were First Nations plays written by First Nations and performed were almost 20% of our theatre repertoire, which is not underrepresented.
No, that's right. And that was reflected in our publications too.
Well, it's been a wonderful chat, and I might just go back to the beginning. There we go. So, Nick, you haven't changed a bit. Now, your mother, of course, is still batting on at 89, and she lives above the shop. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's right. She just, you know, when we publish something she doesn't like, you know, we just hear the cane thumping on the ceiling.
Oh, because I went into currency, and then it's at Redfern, and then you've got artist business on one level, then you've got currency on the next, and then you go into a lift, and there's like, you know, audience with the Queen. It's sort of, you know, very.
Yeah, well, we purchased the building and then basically renovated it and took the top off the building and installed a third floor, and that was specifically so that Mum would remain in contact with the company and you know, have an ongoing involvement.
I love that.
Yes, that's the true matriarch.
Well,
she's Queen.
Just absolutely regal. And
yeah.
Now, Nick, when you were a kid, I mean, did you like going to I mean, you had the brainiest parents. You had a drama academic. You had a mother who was a critic. Was there a time where you actually didn't like going to the theatre?
No, I loved it. I really enjoyed it. I mean, there was a time when I was quite young, when my parents were going to the theatre. His mum was a reviewer, so she was, you know, Mum and Dad were going to the theatre every night or every second night. So Harriet and I remember like my father sitting down with us, you know, one evening, and we hadn't eaten a meal together for quite a long time, and he was looking at my table manners and going, "This is appalling. What have we done to our children?" Because you know, it was an incredibly exciting time when they were totally involved in that project, and then, you know, as I got older, we both Harriet and I spent a lot of time in the theatre, and as a result, I have you know, really quite a good knowledge of the plays of that time. And in fact, I went to perhaps my form of rebellion was to get interested in film and television, because I went to the film and television school after university and studied, you know, and studied for the screen. But in the end, you know, the door to theatre never completely closed.
Well, what a lovely note to finish it. Thank you for that discussion. I've learned we've all learned about Currency Press. Thank you for joining us, and wish everybody a safe time, and hope to see everybody in a crowded theatre reading a Currency Press program/script as soon as possible. And should we sing Happy Birthday? Should we, Nick, do you want to just... Happy birthday. No.
There's a reason.
But David, thank you for the opportunity. It's been great.
All right, you've been watching Stage Whispers Live, our second ever live episode, and I'm going to end this. We're all going to wave goodbye, and I'm going to end it with the Stage Whispers TV Studio Orchestra.